August 28th, 2017 began like any other Tuesday in Clovis, New Mexico. The high desert heat pressed against the windows of the Carver Public Library, where the air conditioning hummed a low, steady rhythm. Inside, children sat cross-legged on the floor during story time. Older patrons browsed the fiction section. Librarians reshelved returns and answered questions at the front desk. No one looked at the doors expecting danger. No one checked the exits. The library was a sanctuary, a place of quiet and safety, and everyone inside treated it that way. A 10-year-old boy named Noah Molina walked through the entrance with his sister, Alexis. They came to use the computers, to pass an afternoon, to exist in a space that had never given them any reason to be afraid. Across town, a 17-year-old boy named Nathaniel Jewett was recording a video in his bedroom. He sat in front of his phone camera and spoke in a measured voice. He apologized to his family. He apologized to his girlfriend. He said he was sorry for what he was about to do. He said he had lost hope. He said he was angry at the world. Then he posted a final picture on Snapchat. The caption was a date. August 28th, today. He left his house wearing dark clothing. He carried a backpack. Inside that backpack were 2 semi-automatic pistols. He had taken them from his father's gun safe, replacing each one with a $2 bill so the empty slots would not be immediately noticed. His father would discover the missing guns later, after the news broke, after the damage was done. But for now, Nathaniel walked through the streets of Clovis, undisturbed, heading toward a building filled with people who had no idea he was coming. Nathaniel Jewett circled the library once before entering. He used the restroom near the entrance. Inside that restroom, 10-year-old Noah Molina was washing his hands. He had been using the computer with his sister. He had excused himself for a moment. Now he stood at the sink, soap on his fingers, water running. Nathaniel entered and stood nearby. The two of them were alone in that small room. Noah finished. He dried his hands. He walked out and returned to his sister. Nathaniel stayed behind. A few seconds later, Nathaniel stepped out of the restroom. He pulled one of the pistols from his backpack and raised it. The first shot echoed off the library's high ceilings. Then another. Then another. People who had been reading looked up in confusion. The sound did not immediately register as gunfire. Libraries are quiet places. Gunshots do not belong there. But the third shot removed all doubt. Screaming began. Chairs scraped against the floor. Someone yelled for everyone to get down. A family crouched behind the information desk, parents pulling their children close, hands pressed over small mouths to keep them quiet. The shooter paced from room to room, his footsteps audible between gunshots. He was not running. He was walking. Deliberate. Methodical. He paused at the end of aisles. He turned corners slowly. Outside, a man named Lupe Aguilar heard the gunfire from across the street. He called 911. Then he walked directly into the library. His wife and child were inside. He did not care about his own safety. He found 2 people already on the ground near the entrance. He knelt beside them. He told them not to die. He did not know if they could hear him. He stayed until police arrived. The first officers arrived within minutes. They did not have the luxury of a full briefing. They did not know how many shooters were inside. They did not know if the building had been wired with explosives or if this was part of a larger attack. They knew only that people were dying in a public library and that every second of delay cost someone their life. They ran toward the entrance with their weapons drawn. Inside, the shooter was still moving. He had not barricaded himself in a room. He had not taken hostages. He was walking through the library, firing at anyone he saw. The officers spread out, clearing sections of the building as they advanced. They stepped over dropped books and spilled backpacks. They called out to anyone who could hear them, telling people to stay down, to keep their hands visible, to not make sudden movements. At the information desk, they found a young man lying on the floor with his hands up. He did not have a weapon in his hands. His face was young, too young. The officers did not know if he was the shooter or just another terrified patron. They ordered him to stay still. They waited for witnesses to identify him. Two patrons were brought forward. They looked at the young man on the floor. They did not hesitate. Yes, that was him. That was the person who had been firing the gun. The officers secured his hands behind his back. Less than 5 minutes had passed between the first gunshot and the shooter's capture. But in that time, 2 people had been killed. 4 more were wounded. A 10-year-old boy had been shot in the arm. A librarian had been shot in the shoulder and was hiding in a back closet, bleeding in the darkness, waiting for someone to find her. When the building was finally secure, the toll became clear. 2 women were dead. Wanda Walters, 61 years old, had worked as a circulation assistant at the library for years. She was at her desk when Nathaniel opened fire. She did not have time to take cover. Christina Carter, 48 years old, was the children's librarian. She was shot while doing her job, surrounded by the very people she had dedicated her life to protecting. 4 others were wounded, including 10-year-old Noah Molina and his sister Alexis. Both survived. At the police station, Nathaniel Jewett sat in an interview room with his hands cuffed. He was calm. An officer asked if he was injured. Nathaniel said his ears hurt from the gunfire. He did not ask about the people he had shot. He did not ask if anyone had died. When detectives asked him what happened, Nathaniel said he did not remember much. He remembered being in the bathroom. He remembered pulling the trigger. He remembered getting mad. The details were foggy, he said. Why did you shoot those people? Nathaniel had no answer. He said he did not know. He said he could not see himself doing anything else. He told the detectives he had been diagnosed with depression. He had been in counseling. Then he quit. He stopped talking to anyone about how he felt. He said he was picked on at school, beat up. Everyone hated him. Police later reviewed a cell phone video of a fight Nathaniel was involved in. The video told a different story. Nathaniel was not an innocent victim. But even if he had been, it would not explain why he walked into a library full of children and opened fire. He shrugged. He said he was angry at the world. That was the only answer he ever gave. Nathaniel Jewett pleaded guilty to 30 felony counts, including 2 charges of first-degree murder. He was 17 years old. The judge sentenced him to 2 concurrent life sentences plus 40 years. At the time of his sentencing, he would have been eligible for parole no sooner than 2051. He would be in his 40s. Then New Mexico changed its laws. In 2023, the state passed a controversial bill banning life sentences for convicted juveniles. Under the new law, juvenile offenders may seek parole after serving 15 years. That means Nathaniel Jewett could go before a parole board in 2033. He would be 33 years old. The families of Wanda Walters and Christina Carter would have to sit across from him and explain why he should stay locked up. They would have to relive the worst day of their lives. They would have to look at the face of the boy who killed their loved ones and ask the state to keep him behind bars. The law has been criticized by victims' rights advocates and praised by juvenile justice reformers. But for the families of the Clovis library shooting, the law is not an abstract debate. It is a calendar. It is a countdown. 2033 is not far away. Nathaniel Jewett recorded a video before he left his house. He said he was sorry. He said he hoped people would remember happier times. Then he walked into a public library full of children and opened fire. 2 women died. 4 more were wounded. A 10-year-old boy was shot in the arm. A father knelt in a pool of blood and told a stranger not to die. And a state law might let the shooter walk free before he turns 35. The library reopened. The shelves were restocked. The blood was cleaned. But the quiet afternoons have never fully returned. Not for the survivors, not for the families, not for the officers who handcuffed a 17-year-old boy and then had to tell his father what his son had done.